From inside this page, expand the Integration node, then select Service Types. You should see a number of service types listed over here on the right side of the screen. Scroll through this list until you find the SQL Server service. Briefly notice that you can also use the search option as your list grows within your environment. Highlight the SQL Server service option, then click the New Instance button in the menu at the top right side of the list. We'll configure this instance with the following values to start with. For display name, enter in K2 Tutorial SQL Database. For description, enter in service instance for the sample database used for K2 tutorials. For service type, it should be set to SQL Server Service. This will be the connector that we will use to connect to the target system. We also call these service types or service brokers, and they are usually technology specific. Down in the service authentication section, for authentication mode, be sure to select static, and we will provide a static username and password to connect to the sample database. For username, enter in K2 Learning User with a capital K, L, and U as shown on my screen. And then for the password, enter in K2 Learning Pass with a capital K, L, and P as shown on my screen. Moving down to the service keys area, on different SQL Server, select True because the database actually exists on a physically different SQL Server than our K2 system. For command timeout, enter in 90. We want to extend the command timeout from the default to cater for a potential high load. For the database name, enter in K2 Learning as shown here. And then for the database server, enter in what I have on my screen. For Use Native SQL Execution, be sure to set that to false if it isn't already. We do not want K2 to use native SQL commands for this target database, since it's on a separate server. Also, for Generate SmartObjects for this service instance, make sure that's unchecked. We will manually create SmartObjects after we complete this task. Click OK when you're done with this screen and move through the confirmation dialog. In the next task, we will generate SmartObjects for each of the tables, views, and stored procedures in that database. SmartObjects expose properties and methods of these database entities for use in views, forms, and workflows within a K2 application. The sample database in this exercise is a very simple database with only a few SQL entities, but the approach would be the same for any other SQL database. While still in the K2 management site, select Service Instances under Integration here on the left. Then navigate to the K2 Tutorial SQL Database Service Instance. You can also search for this by name. Then click the Generate SmartObjects button here on the toolbar. On the Generate SmartObjects screen, expand the Tables node. You don't need to create SmartObjects from all of the tables and views here, but you can select all or as many tables and views here by putting checks in the boxes as needed for your project. You will be selecting a single table from which to create a SmartObject. Put a check in the Finance Expense category table and click OK. To find the SmartObject that we just created, you can select and open the Categories group from the menu options here on the left side. In this case, we can drill into the SQL Server Service, K2 Tutorial SQL Database, Tables groups, and here we find the SmartObject we just auto-generated. If we had selected multiple tables, they would also show up here. Views would also fall in their own group at the same level as the Tables group.